that today we are run by machines, by many times electronic machines. And who controls those electronic machines? They can do almost anything today. They can make you a suit of clothes. That they give you your checks. They do all of the banking. These people who control these machines control society. While you had other periods in the society, you had your industrial period, and you had your pre-industrial period. During the pre-industrial period, you had your poor people coming in from Europe. And most of the people were English-speaking people from the British Isles. And collectively, they could make it from this point to this point up here in maybe one generation. Because there was a fluidity, there was opportunity. And if you couldn't find the opportunity at tidewater, you could go into the backlands. But by the time that we hit this industrial period, which coincides with the Civil War, you have a certain solidification, a certain monopolization, a certain control of the means of production. And the people coming in here, who are your Italians, who are your Central Europeans, come into a society in which they're not going to go into the large corporations. You find very few of them, let's say, that become oil magnates. And you see that most of the people that go into these large corporations or cartels and become the controllers of them come from either Northern Europe or come from your British Isles. It's like a soup. There is very relative upward mobility, and if the upward mobility is going to be very slow. You can, however, you have the opportunity to go into the small service businesses. Like, for example, the Italians went into crime, because in the United States, crime is a business. And I've told everybody very many times, I've often said that there's no difference between a John D. Rockefeller and for example, Al Capone. There were two American boys trying to make it in the society. The only thing, Al Capone's a little bit more honest because he does his own contracts, where Rockefeller used to pay people to do the contracts for him. But the Italians, through organized crime, do make certain gains. They built a certain economic base. They control, for example, the noodle and many of the spaghetti joints through protection and through an organization. I make this analogy and I say, can you imagine what would happen if the Chicano controlled the tortilla? You see, and we don't even control Taco Bell. But you have this movement up here, but you have these businesses, these service businesses in which people can still make it. But in this post-industrial period, you have almost a solidification with 85% of your people of Mexican extraction being in this lower third of that economic system. You have 60% of your black community being there, with a very little mobility here. And the other 35% of the blacks are right here. Very few up here. How many corporation managers do you find from the blacks? Yes. These are usually your pre-industrial period, I would say, is pre-1850. This really starts to hit between 1880 and 1930. The post-industrial period really begins in this 1930 and after period. And it really has reached today a point where it's hitting its high point. Now, here you have 20% of your white population that is down here. The only difference between, let's say, a Chicano and a white is that a Chicano, when he walks in, is assumed to be from this class until he proves otherwise. Where if a white from this class walks in with a suit, he may be assumed to be up here in this class. So there's not that pygmalion by the rest of society. There's not that containerization by the rest of society. And you see this in operation today. You see, for example, that traditionally you would get enough surplus income to go on to the university if you were a tradesman. If you are from this class right here, what are your chances of getting into the electricians union? What are your chances of getting into even the carpenters union? Even to the hod carriers union? It's going to be very difficult en masse. And what has been the safety valve for most newcomer groups? School teaching. The school teaching, for example, let's face it, your normal schools, your teachers' colleges, were much easier than your university systems up until recently. But even school teaching today has become a monopolized profession. You take the Los Angeles City Schools, for example. You have 28,000 teachers. You have about 600,000 students. 28% of them are Spanish speaking. 3.2% of your teachers are Spanish speaking. 1/3 of them may be from Cuba, and usually from a higher class. 1/3 of them will be Anglo-American females with Spanish surnames. And about 1/3 will be of Mexican extraction. So you find the situation that you have maybe 1% of your school teachers that are of Mexican extraction in a time when the Los Angeles City Schools are losing about 10,000 students a year. So that means less jobs. Today, in this present system, the way we see it today, what would happen if Chicanos all of a sudden started leading to grade level and started going to the colleges in the proportion that their numbers demanded? Could they find the jobs in school teaching? You have right now, for example, the teachers' unions fighting things like bilingual education. Not on the grounds that it's pedagogically bad, but on the grounds that they exclude competent, in quotes, white teachers. And then you will start to threaten job security. So you have right now your schools, the present trend. In the 1950s, in the 40s, you had vocational education. Today, they're calling it career education. In some schools like Lincoln, you have girls that are going to become nurses, and they make them practical nurses. They send them to the hospital, and they train them how to put bedpans underneath the bed. Really not preparing them. It's not a profession, and they don't know it. Or you put them into other types of these service units. So looking at this system today, where is a Chicano going to go? And it's something that we have to address ourselves realistically too. I went to a school, and I was very fortunate. I went to a kind of a college prep school, to Loyola High School. And in that school we had 26 Mexicans. And all of us, you know, it was a fairly good education. We got 4 years of Latin, and we had one elective between ROTC and Greek. And most of us became professionals. I'm the only one at the present time who is working in anything related to the Chicano. Where did the rest of them go? And where will the masses go even if we educate people? And what will the aspiration levels be of those who go on to college or go on to your universities in the next 20 years? Now, these are things that we have to start thinking about. And as beautiful as Cinco de Mayo is, as beautiful as the Jarabe Tapatio is, as beautiful as Poros are, as beautiful as Conjuntos are, when we get together, when we start to play the music, when we start to give our Viva Mexicos, let's think about what we're saying. Because we look at Mexico today, and we sometimes mythicize the Mexican family, and we say, gee, what beautiful. You know, the Mexican was all right until he came to this country. Now we have the breakup of our families. We even look at Mexico and the families. I used to go to there to Mexico City, you saw the solidarity of the family. But where was the solidarity of that family? That middle-class family, they could afford a criada so the mother could sit down and eat dinner with the family. But what happened to the children of las criadas, the maids who were there, who were serving that meal? So that becomes myth. And I think we should start to think about where we're going collectively. The main difference between the Indian religion and Christianity was that Christians believe that they can find salvation individually. In the Indian philosophy, the only way a person could find salvation was collectively. And I think we should start thinking collectively. And we should start thinking about our salvation, our materialistic salvation here, our things of the flesh, and start to realize that the only way we can find or we can overcome something, that we can find a form of liberation, is to collectively lift ourselves up. And we shouldn't be totally put under anesthetic, totally get wiped out during the Cinco de Mayo, because that becomes an escape. Now, I'm going to open up to questions and answers. All right? Ask me anything. Yeah.
Doctor, as important a person as you are for the Mexican movement, as important a person as you are for the Mexican movement, have you made any efforts in the mass media to bring to the attention of the world the Chicanos? I'm talking about television, movies, commercials on television, a scene like the Waltons perhaps. Have you been?
No, I haven't. I've been pretty well blackballed in many areas. In many ways, because people automatically put a label on you as a radical, or as a communist, or this or that. I am also very much afraid of the media. You know, there's a series coming out this coming fall called Chico and the Man, and it's about a white mechanic with a vato loco as his assistant, and he is capping on him all the time. It's an exploitation of the theme of ethnic humor, Archie Bunker, Sanford and Son. But here you have a white man constantly battering a Mexican. But then you still even look at it unrealistically, because they use the name Chico. How many times do we use the name Chico in Mexican communities? So this is an attempt to exploit also the Cuban community and the Puerto Rican community. Also, it's supposed to be a barrio theme, and they have flamenco guitar with Feliciano playing the guitar. And I'm afraid of television because people don't listen to anybody. They'll do anything to make $1. Today in East Los Angeles, those gum wrappers that they're selling right now, they're selling one that says Tijuana Smells. It's the worst smelling cigar around. It's the one that killed the bandit Pancho Villa.
My point is this:
people are buying it.
My point is this: that the black people, have had suffered for so long, and every time, very often, when you turn the television on, you see a movie, blacks are being featured.
Which way? Are they being featured or are they being exploited?
They're at least being exposed. An exposition that has brought the world, them to the attention of the world. I don't think they've suffered too badly because of that.
I
If
think
we
they
could
have
do at least
suffered
that
a hell of a
good to the
lot
Mexican
on
people.
it.
Pardon me?
I think that they've suffered a hell of a lot on it. The Superfly things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a fantastic exploitation of the black. I think that, sure, you have a couple of black actors making a fantastic amount of money. You have a couple making money on commercials. What are the type of commercials that they're putting down on the black people? They're training them to become better consumers. Many times consumers beyond their means. I don't know. Maybe I look at it too negatively. But,
Yeah, but I would think that like the movies that they've made, like Superfly movements of that nature, I think that that is pretty, I don't think that the blacks really gain from that at all,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about sounder.
Yeah, well, like-
Classic indeed.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're right.
They featured a dog.
Right,
They call it a dog's name.
Yeah.
yeah, well, you know, they have a actor, Willie D. Williams, you know, he was in, Lady Sings the Blues. And, he was saying, you know, like how, his career has been like really hindered because they want him to play such roles as like, you know, whereas, you know, he's a super black guy, you know, and stuff like that. I must agree with that. I don't think that,
Would you rather that the Mexicans, the black people not have that exposition at all?
yeah, I would rather not have it myself, yeah.
But look at what's happening right now. The extremes that they're going into, the stereotyping again. You just give them an inch, and they're going into this new series, Flora. And the way, you know, the one, you know, the one black guy always stealing, his hands can't keep still. And you know, the problem is that we're getting caught on that tail end, and we're gonna have this Chico in the man. And how many Chicanos are about those locals? You see? And how many Chicanos are going to identify? And is that a positive exposure, national exposure? And they're going to come up with it.
I thought some exposure would be better than none.
I don't think so. I think that the exposure,
Yeah, now when it comes-
unfortunately, the exposure of the moratorium, when we were actively destroying something, at least conveyed the picture of the active Chicano to people, and not the person under the cactus. And I think that here, it's much better than again, by showing how we take it from our bosses, and we can take all of the deprecations, etc. I don't know. I personally am not involved in television. I'm not an actor.
I like the idea of exposing yourself in that respect. I work in Hollywood a lot, and I don't meet enough Mexican people representing themselves in that community, in any facet of it. Very, very few people. And it came as a shock to me after I worked it for a while. And I realized it was the...
Well, look at
Los
this
Angeles
Chico and
composed
the
so
Man.
much.
They don't even have a Mexican playing the part.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have probably a Puerto Rican or a Cuban playing the part of Chico, and he's supposed to be a lot local. I don't know. People do things for money, for dollars and cents in the media. They
Have
don't
you
do
read a book
anything
called
around it.
Huelga? Did you read a book called Huelga by Frank Chandler? About Mr. Cesar Chavez?
So I know the one by Nelson, but not
No.
that one. It's also no, I don't know that. It's probably a newer one. All right. Are there any other questions here? I want to ask. Yes, sir.
Have you heard that noontime program they got now? Noontime is noon.
Let's wrap.
No, something like that.
No, I haven't.
It's written by a kid who don't, you know, he's a brother of my son. And it's, I can't remember his, the one that takes the place to comment on it, you know, like Alicia Sandoval.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I saw you once on television, and we had quite a conversation after your, you know, you really put the thing right on there and exposed the whole thing. And I can't recall what it was all about. But I think that if you ever seen TV advertising in Mexico?
Yeah.
All right, you got a lot of Mexicans out there, you know, advertising the product. Here, Florence Henderson talks, and some Mexican or some Puerto Rican is talking in the words that Florence Henderson is saying. You notice that?
Yeah.
The reason is because we have no power, no union. We're not united,
exposed
organized. In other words, we have to demand that any advertisement from the soap or cookies or crackers, whatever it is,
Toothpaste.
they're going to put anybody to talk that part. They should demand that be a Mexican talking.
My point.
I agree with you.
Now, that's what he's referring.
Yes, sir.
And the thing is, it's inherent racism. One of the things I think that has hurt the Chicanos, that is in 1948, they put on our driver's license that we were white, and too many of them have tried to spend their entire lives trying to prove that they're white.
No, but I'll tell you why that is. you get the average person here. I've seen it in my own family. They have that inferiority complex. Now you take, I'm an Alto-Me Indian. I was Calientes. I'm from below the border, and I'm a American from Mexico. I'm not a United States American. You know, American, Mexican American is the one is below the border, and the one from this side is estadounidense, and the Chicana, the guy was born here. My kids are estadounidense and Chicana before they were born here. But once I become a citizen here, I become a estadounidense and Chicana. Estadounidense and Chicana. Because I'm not a citizen. Now, what I mean is that if the Mexicans would get together and demand that the advertising of any product be made by them, not by an angle of talking apart and some Mexican dubbing in the word. That's what he was.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I personally have been an educator now for 16 years. And my main thrust is in the schools. Our objective at our particular place is to graduate a minimum of 600 Chicano teachers by 1978 and take control of these schools in the San Fernando Valley and take control of the schools in Ventura. That is our particular objective. Because I think that right now, you have to start dealing with students, young students. I said the sixth book that I wrote was a book called Taking Advantage Of. It never got published. And it was a book to teach students how to think. One of the case studies, there were in pictures, is a brother and sister, and the brother's pouring the chocolate milk. But he diverts the attention of the sister, and when the sister's looking away, he takes 2 gulps, and he pours himself some more. And I wanted the students to discuss how this was taking advantage of. Then another scene, the sister goes to the younger brother and says, "Here, I'll give you my nickel for your dime because my nickel is bigger than your dime." Then I wanted him to explain how this was taking advantage of. Then I wanted to go into the gas companies. I wanted to go into the telephone companies and the units. And I wanted them to go into how a larger country or a more organized country took advantage of a country that was not as organized. How this was taking advantage of. I showed to a couple of, it was a 3rd grade book, and I showed to a couple of publishers. And they told me, he said, "You're talking about exploitation." I said, "Yeah." And they said, no, this is much too controversial. My point here is that my particular priority is to train people to take control of institutions, especially the elementary schools, and teach children how to think inductively, how to think and be able to transform that reality, and show them the contradictions. For example, I always show them the picture of the Statue of Liberty and the words under, "Give me your poor, give me your homeless who want to be free," etc. Then I said, look at American history, is this true? La Gran Mentirosa, or you can call her La Gran other things. You can say, here, this is thing. Then take it, you take Aldo Guthrie's in New Orleans, who said, United States is the most democratic nation in the world. It's just screwed over everyone. But he uses another word. And you can see that you get this, and you get the realities here. In commercials, what I don't like about commercials, no matter if they have brown faces, the masses of people say, well, Jesus, he made it. I can make it in this society. And it isn't true. A son of a poor black janitor cannot make it in the society unless he can become a good human animal and get out there and run and be pounded every day on the football field or on the baseball field. And he's going to have to be exceptional. He's going to have to be better. But just because a Jim Brown made it, he's not going to make it, especially if he's a small kid that weighs 98 pounds. And I do think that there are dangers in commercials, even when they're brown. What good to have the Anthony Quinns done this? Or the Rita Hayworths? Or the Silicone Kid, Raquel Welch? You see what I mean? You see my point? I hate to be skeptical. You know, I don't want to be flippant.
Has Sidney Poitier helped the black people at all?
Yeah, in a way, because he's spoken out in social issues. He's spoken out in social issues. But I don't think that he would help the black people if he were isolated over there in Lily's the field going, you know?
How about Willie Mays?
I don't think that Willie Mays has helped the black people.
No, I would think that Willie Mays is more or less just an image, more or less. I mean, because it was, you know, Willie Mays, I would think is more or less saying, yeah, well, like he said, he did it, you know. So, you know, like to make it more say like, yeah, well, you can do it, you know. But as much as like really, I think contributing a lot, I don't think that he did. Though.
I think it's a form of the loteria, where people wait for the premio gordo. And how many, you know, people in Mexico, you know how they play the loteria. And I think that the commercials are a form of that loteria.
You know, excuse me, if I may say something like Sammy Davis, like as bad off as he had gotten with the blacks, you know, I think that he did blacks more justice, more good than like a whole lot of black other actors, simply because he like more or less like let them know that, hey, like I had to do this in order for me to, you know, be put in a position, you know, so like here I'm back to let you know that, hey, you know, I'm still the same. And I think like it was hard for blacks to like really be able to understand what he was saying because, you know, I don't know.
He's not well liked in the black community.
Pardon me, I didn't understand.
Well, I'd say he's not as well liked as some other blacks.
Yeah, right. You know, but I think that he's even. I personally think that I think that he's really done, you know, a lot for the blacks. But it's just that a lot of blacks haven't had the chance to like really, you know.
Do we call him an honest pimp?
No, you know, I think that he's a pretty good businessman. I think, you know, more so.
He's a good capitalist.
Yeah.
I think though, if you take, for example, I think that that by helping, I think that many people help. I think Jane Fonda has helped the white people in the eyes of many minority groups to say, here's a woman that cares and does things and puts her career on the line.
Yeah, but she's being crucified.
I think that, yeah, but I mean, this is the thing. I think that for all of her drawbacks, I think that the Vicky Carr, for example, Vicky Carr last year gave $50,000 for scholarships, which is more than any Chicana actors all put together have done. And that one album of hers, where she comes out singing Mexican songs, I think that's a hell of a lot. On her identification, she identifies strongly. But there are not very many of the Vicky Carrs. And even in the milk commercials, you had a lot of people much more than her.
Well, Vicky Carr puts out a lot of scholarships in Texas.
Yeah, in San Antonio there.
Hey, I was going to ask you, is Chicano studies as hard as, say, having Afro studies put into, you know, into schools? I was just wondering, do the Chicanos have to go, say, through all the, in other words, what, like, is it as hard to get Chicano studies into schools?
Yeah, it's much more so. Yeah, because, for example, I said before that most society thinks on a black-white television set. The Mexican is usually an afterthought. You take, for example, the attention that is given to the Mexican in the county of Los Angeles. Mexican, in 1960, we had 600,000 Spanish surnames. 1970 census, we had 1.25 million counted. That's not the ones that weren't counted. If we can keep off the pill, by 1980 we may have about 2.75 million. And at the same time, you have a you have that's a sexist remark to make. I apologize for it. But when the day is long, I do kind of get flippant. But I'm just saying, fact of life. And I'm just saying that the jump has been at about 113% every decade, where the white population in the county of Los Angeles has actually been declining at about a 5% rate. Now, you have then about 700,000 blacks. The black jump has been about 65% a year, a decade. And actually there has been much more attention, let's say, in offices or by the regular political machinery of blacks. But I think there are reasons for that. I think that economically, for example, blacks are much better off than Mexicans. So therefore they have much more of that political power.
Yeah.
At Levert Park, for example, near the Baldwin Hills, not this Baldwin Park, but the Baldwin Hills over there, one of the highest per average incomes is in that area, and it's mostly the black area.
You know, I would think that, I think that it really has to do with being fashionable, really, you know, like, not so much that it's really wanting to be done, but, you know.
Well, there's also there's something that we call nativism in American society. There's 50%